One, and we are recording with my friend, Miss Bobbie Ann Cox, who I just told her, and I'll say it again, is single-handedly fighting the government. She is Superwoman. She is stopping New York from trying to impose literal quarantine concentration camps. This isn't exaggeration. This isn't some clickbait thumbnail. This is legitimate legislation for quarantine camps in New York. Bobbie's a lawyer. She's been fighting it, and the governor is now appealing it. And Bobbie is going to fight to the death to stop this because she's an American and I love her. And that's why I have her on her. And if you go into the description, you can find the links to all of her stuff. Miss Cox, what's going on? Give us an update.
Yes, thanks for having me on again, Tommy. It's great to
Yeah,
see you.
of course, you as well.
So the governor here in New York, Kathy Hochul, is now appealing a lawsuit that I won last year. Basically, what happened was she made a regulation, her Department of Health made a regulation. So this did not come through the New York State Legislature. This came through the Department of Health in New York State through the governor. And the regulation basically said that they could pick and choose which New Yorkers they could lock up or lock down. They could have locked you up in your home, so forced you to stay in your home, or they could have removed you from your home with the force of police and put you into a detention center or a facility or whatever you want to call it of their choosing. You had no say, and they could have kept you there for however long they wanted. There was no time restriction in that regulation. So it could have been days, weeks, months. There was no age restriction in that regulation. So they could have done this to you, but they also could have done this to your child or your grandchild or your elderly parent. They said in that regulation that they could tell you, the Department of Health, the government could tell you what you could and couldn't do while you were in lockup or lockdown. So, I mean, that could have been anything, right? They could have told you whether or not you could eat or sleep or where you could sleep or what you could eat or what medications you couldn't take or had to take. I mean, it was very broad language. And there was no provision in there that said how you got out of quarantine once they put you in there. And what I mean by that is we had oral arguments in front of the judge last year, and the judge asked the attorney general's office, he said, okay, let's say you take a family. Let's say you put them into quarantine in a facility somewhere. Let's say it's a hospital. How do they get out once you put them in there? And there was a pregnant pause. And then the attorney general's office said, well, I guess they could hire a lawyer and they could sue us. So unbelievable totalitarian power is what they gave themselves, and conflicts not only with the Constitution, because there's no due process protections built into that regulation, but it also conflicts with our existing law. We already have a quarantine law in New York. Most, if not all states do have quarantine laws, but our law in New York State, which was passed 70 years ago by our state legislature, has many due process protections built into that law so that the government can't abuse their power. The number one thing that our law says is you have to first actually have the communicable disease that the government thinks you have. In this regulation, there was no requirement for them to even prove that you were sick. So they literally could have locked you up for any reason whatsoever because they had no reason to prove that you were actually sick or even exposed to a communicable disease. Completely totalitarian. So I brought a lawsuit against the governor and the Department of Health last year. I'm representing a group of New York State legislators, Senator George Borrello, Assemblyman Chris Tague, and Congressman Mike Lawler, together with a citizens group called Uniting New York State. And we brought the case based on separation of powers. The governor breached separation of powers, doesn't have the power to make this regulation. The court ruled in our favor. We won. They struck down the regulation, said it was unconstitutional. And now, conveniently, after November's election, when the governor was running for election, now the governor is appealing the case. And now we're back in court in the appellate division. And I'm back fighting the same thing. You know, it's unbelievable. Just, you know, do what they want whenever they want. Come get me if you can get me. It's horrible. It's unbelievable tyranny.
So they don't have to have proof of your exposure. It can be to any disease they want. They can lock up anyone from your grandkid to your grandma for as much time as they want, for any reason they want, with no due process. That is, I mean, you couldn't comically make a more tyrannical. That'd be like if we were sitting around doing like a sketch, like an SNL sketch. Not SNL, they're a bunch of communists, but like an old school SNL sketch when they were funny. And we were like drunk, and you're like, well, just write the most ridiculous shit. That's what I would write. If I want to write the most like blatantly Hitler-esque thing, I would be like, yeah, if you're sick, I don't have to prove it. And grandkids to grandma, how long? Yeah, I don't know, a decade, a month, however long I want. How do you get out? Yeah, you don't. It's a bad sketch, but it's in New York, and you're the only one standing up against it. How is this not? How is this not all over the news? It's the most ridiculous shit. Excuse my French.
I know. It's unbelievable. All last year, the case was swept under the rug. Mainstream media wouldn't pick it up. I was doing a ton of interviews on, podcasts and radios and, online TV stations like Real America's Voice picked it up and said, but mainstream media, no, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Just sweep that right under the rug. No, nobody needs to hear about that. And now this year, now that they're appealing, an even bigger story, right? It should be front page news. Governor of New York suing on appeal to get the power back, which has already been declared unconstitutional by a judge, to get the power back to lock you up or lock you down at will for any reason whatsoever. If that doesn't send shivers up every American's spine, then you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. Governments are not allowed. We don't live in a monarchy, right? Our form of government in this country, whether you're talking about the state governments or you're talking about the federal government, our form of government is a constitutional republic with 3 branches that are supposed to be co-equal. One branch is not supposed to be more powerful than the other. One branch does not tell the other branch what to do and how to do it. Each has their own power as clearly laid out in our Constitution. If you look at our state constitution, same thing as our federal constitution, 3 branches of government. When one branch, in this case, the executive, the governor, takes a power from another branch, that's tyranny. The definition of tyranny is taking a power you are not entitled to and keeping it for yourself. And that's what the governor is doing here. She does not have the power. Her Department of Health does not have the power to make a regulation, first of all, that has no due process. And second of all, that conflicts with existing law. We've already got a quarantine law. It's 70 years old. The Department of Health, if you don't like it, you don't get to just change it by writing a rule. It's not the way the Constitution works. Absolutely not. But this is what the governor thinks she can do, is trying to do. And she's using your tax dollars to fight me in court. People should be outraged by this. If people knew about it, they probably would be outraged, but nobody knows about it.
Just real quick for my own curiosity, what's the 70-year-old quarantine law?
So that's section 2120 of the public health law here in New York State. And what that law says, which was, again, passed through our legislature, through our senators and our assembly members, which is how laws are supposed to be made, not by the governor. That law says, number one, if a doctor, it has to be a doctor, if a doctor thinks that one of their patients has a communicable disease and they are not comporting themselves in a proper manner to protect those around them, then the doctor can refer to the local health authority, not the state, the local health authority, and ask for an investigation to be had. And then there's an investigation to see not only, does this person have this dangerous communicable disease, but how are they acting? Are they trying to protect other people around them? Are they purposely trying to harm other people around them and spread their germs? And there's a whole investigation. There's a hearing in front of a judge. You get the right to an attorney. If at the end of the hearing, the judge thinks that the person not only has that disease, but actually is acting in an improper or dangerous manner to expose those around them, then the judge, not the Department of Health, the judge can issue an isolation or a quarantine order, and that person would be put into a hospital, not a detention center or a facility or a camp or whatever the Department of Health wants. It would have to be a hospital so that they could get care for whatever that dangerous disease is. And then, that is comporting with due process. That is a law that has been well thought out, that has been balanced. They balance the power of what are the rights of that person who is ill versus what are the rights of the people around them. And that's how you come up with a law. You put due process protections in there to balance and make sure everybody's being protected as best as possible. The governor is not allowed to come along and say, yeah, you know what? I don't really like that law, so I'm going to make a regulation. My Department of Health is issuing a new regulation. And they wipe the whole thing out. They say, we can lock you up. We, the Department of Health, not a judge, the Department of Health can lock you up or lock you down whenever we want based on a list of, here's the other thing. It's a list of supposed to be dangerous communicable diseases. Do you know some of the things on that list? The list is, a couple pages long, of course. So yeah, COVID's on there. Yeah. Tuberculosis is on there. Yeah. But Lyme disease is on there. Lyme disease, which the last time I checked is not communicable between humans. Toxic shock syndrome is on the list, also not communicable between humans. Food poisoning is on the list. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Complete overreach, like beyond overreach.
And not to stray off into speculation, because there's so much actual meat on the bone we can discuss, but just as an entertainment or a thought, well, how long until they take mental aspects? How long until they say extremism? Well, what is extremism? Now, that's not in there, so I don't want to go off into speculation because I don't want to rob the validity of this show. But I mean, just as a thought experiment, how long until they say extremism, or how long until they say you're a gun owner, or I mean, the FBI has the Gadsden flag, the "Don't Tread on Me," and then I think the original was the 13 stars, and was it Betsy, whoever sewed it. Those are now in the FBI's handbook for extremism, original American patriot, fucking white powdered wig musket shit. They're now saying is un-American. But I mean, the point is forget everything I just said. They don't have to prove that you have any of these. So the list doesn't even matter. The list could either be something legitimate like Ebola, which the CDC they'll send teams to isolate you because that's got a 50% fatal rate, which is okay. I get that. But it doesn't even matter, because what you said earlier is all this is a moot point. This is a distraction. What's on the list? Is it Lyme disease? Is it toxic shock? Whatever. None of it matters because they don't have to prove it anyway, right? So forget everything I just said. It doesn't even matter what the list could be. One thing. It could be, you were bit by an extinct species of armadillo. It doesn't matter. They can just have it.
Yeah. For any reason, you don't have to prove the person's sick. You don't have to prove the person's been exposed. It's horrendous. And the fact that the Attorney General is using tax dollars, people's hard-earned tax dollars, to bring this appeal is sinful. It's sinful.
I think you and I spoke on the phone last year along the lines of there is that moment when you're looking around, you're like, why does no one care about this? Well, and then eventually it's that unhappy feeling of oh, damn it, I have to be the change I want to see in the world. And that's what you're doing, is no one else is paying attention to it. And I'll use this little vignette. Me and my friend Chris were sitting on our front porch in college in summer 2013, and we were pretty shit-faced. And a storm came into Athens, Georgia at UGA, and lightning struck a tree, and the tree fell on a power line, and the power line lit on fire. And we were underage, so we weren't supposed to be drinking, and we were shit-faced, and we were looking at this thing, and it was 200 yards from us. and there's like a flaming power line on the street. And we're like, dude, someone needs to call the cops. And then Chris looked at me and goes, wait, do we have to call the cops? And I was like, oh shit. Like, yeah, we have to be the thing. And we called them and we didn't interact with them because we were drunk and high. But that's not the point. The point is like you have to be the change if no one else is. And that's what you're doing. And it's infuriating that you're the only person talking about this. But not to kiss your ass, but I mean, I guess that's why I do commend and respect and love you, is because like you are doing that. How can people help you or aid you?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. People need to get involved, right? And everybody has to do something because, this quarantine regulation is just an example of what's been going on with the government overreach and the complete, they just completely ignore the Constitution and all of the rights that are set forth in the Constitution. The Constitution was written to keep the government in check. The Constitution was not written to keep the people in check. And people have forgotten that because, they don't teach civics in school anymore on purpose. People have to get involved. If people want to help with this specific lawsuit and the appeal that the governor has brought, we have a whole webpage specifically about this quarantine lawsuit. People can go on that webpage. It's www.unitingnys.com/lawsuit. People can go on that page.
It's in the description. I did get it. So everybody listening, it's in the description. It's the third link I have, www.unitingnys.com/lawsuit. Okay. And under that is her law firm. And above that is your lawsuit commercial. And above that is the link to your Rumble page. Sorry, keep going.
Perfect. Thank you. So people can go on that page at unitingnys.com and they can look. First of all, we have the judge's decision from last year. There's a link there. Click the link. You can read the judge's decision and it'll help you understand what the arguments were and what was actually decided. You can read the regulation itself because it was in black and white in effect. That's also it's at the end of the judge's decision at the link there. There are social media flyers posted on that page. You can download those flyers or copy those flyers and post them on your social media to help raise awareness about this case. A lot of people do not know about this case. There are videos there, other interviews that I've done about this. There's a video we did a press conference, Senator Borrello, Assemblyman Teague, and Congressman Lawler and myself. We did a press conference last year in Albany when we launched this case. So there's a video of that press conference there on the webpage. There's a lot of information. People need to get involved, even doing simple things like downloading the flyer and posting it on your social media, or taking the link to this interview today and posting it on your social media, or send it out in your emails. Like, if a lot of people have text, they have text groups with their friends or email groups with their friends. Put it in your text group, put it in your email group and say, oh my gosh, check out this interview. This is craziness. If this happens in New York, I promise you it's going to spread to other states.
If that happens in California or New York, those are the test beds. It always starts there and you go, oh, well, that's just California. And then a year fast forwards and you go, why are there naked men dancing in the street in front of children in Atlanta? Well, if it starts there, it spreads. You have to bleach this shit. You have to take a blowtorch to it before it even starts.
Absolutely. This is the issue with this case is, number one, if the appellate court now, we have oral arguments in September. If the appellate court now in September overturns the lower court decision and says, oh no, the governor can do this, no problem. The Department of Health has this power, no problem. Two things are going to happen. Number one, the governor and the Department of Health will have the ability to throw you into a quarantine facility whenever they want with no proof for however long they want. But the other thing that's going to happen is that the Department of Health and other agencies, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, all these agencies that sit in the executive branch with the governor, they're going to have a signal. They're going to have a message sent to them saying, hey, you can do whatever you want. You can make rules that conflict with the Constitution. You can make rules that conflict with existing laws that we've had for 70 years. Don't worry about it, because look at this lawsuit. The court overturned the decision, so you can do whatever you want. the floodgates will open and you will see agencies, not just in New York State, but around the country, doing whatever they want. And they will point to the case and they'll say, well, look what the appellate division said in New York State. So this case is so important. The fact that the media is not picking this up is a sin. I did go last week. I was on the Charlie Kirk show. So that was, probably the first time we had national coverage.
That's a big audience. Probably.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Bobbie.
That was amazing. So Charlie picked up the story. He had me on for about 10 or 15 minutes to talk about it. But other than that, it's been, no, nobody wants to touch it. We have to spread the word, and we have to do it the old-fashioned way, through talking to people about it, through sending people a message with links to either the web page about the lawsuit or mycoxlawyers.com webpage or website has a lot of information about this case. I have articles that I've written about it. I have articles that have been written about it, interviews that I've done. A lot of that information is on my website, which is coxlawyers.com. And I write a Substack every week. Once a week, I do an article on my Substack. If people go to substack.com and they look me up, Bobbie Ann Cox, or my direct Substack is attorneycox.substack.com. And sign up. I mean, it's free. Sign up. Once a week, you'll get an email from me. It'll be an article. And I typically talk about constitutional issues, things that are going on either in the country or in New York State specifically, and what that means from a constitutional standpoint. Because civics are not taught in schools anymore, it's up to the people to go find the information and understand, what are my rights? What does the Constitution say? Can the government do this? Can the government do that? If people don't know that their rights are being trampled upon, they're not going to stand up for their rights, because they don't know that they're losing them. So it's really important to get the information out there and share this with people. I know a lot of people are busy, everybody's overscheduled and overworked. If people don't have time to do things like go online, go on social media, spread the word, talk about it, there's a donate link on my website and also on unitingnys.com. I've been handling this case pro bono for a year and a half. Donations are greatly appreciated. But the other thing is that there are other things people can do. If people don't want to get involved with helping out in a lawsuit, you can get involved helping out in a lot of other ways. We have to change the leadership at the top. And I don't mean just, the president and, Congress. I don't mean just that. Yes, we have to change those leaders because they're not doing right by the Constitution. But I'm talking about even at the local level. Your local town board, your local city council, your local school board, even your state level, right? Your state governor or your state senator or your state assembly member. People have to get involved. And if you don't want to run for office, support somebody who is running for office or who is already in office who thinks like we do. Everybody kind of throws their hands up in the air and says, oh, all these politicians are so crooked, they're terrible. Well, a lot of them might be, but not all of them. I know many in the New York State legislature now who are fighting for our rights, who do stand for the Constitution, who do try and stop the tyranny. The problem is that they need the help of the people, because right now in New York, we have one party rule. The Democrats control our state Senate, our state assembly, the governor's mansion, and the attorney general's office. So we have one party rule on steroids here in New York. No matter which party it is, one party rule is really dangerous because you're only getting one side of the story and you don't have a balance of power. So in New York, we're working on trying to flip the New York State Senate. We're going to turn that from Democrat to Republican, and then we'll have balance. We'll have one house run by the Democrats, one house run by the Republicans. Then you have to have a conversation. You have to hear both sides of the story, and you have to work together to make laws. It's the only way out of this mess. We're not going to, bringing 1,000 lawsuits is not going to stop governments from overreaching and doing whatever they want. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we have to end the absolute power. That is the bottom line.
Yep, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And in the last 2 minutes or so, again, the money thing. That's the it's like when I was growing up, and mom and dad made us go to church every Sunday. And like once a year, the priest would kind of be like, all right, here's the uncomfortable talk. Like, we don't have enough money for like, power and new pews and air conditioner and everything. I know everybody gives $5. Like, you got to cough up. And he's like, no one wants to talk about this. I get it. And it would just be the uncomfortable, they'd pass the basket around. Everyone would write a little more. And it's, if you want the church to keep going, it's got to, whatever. That's kind of how I feel. It's like, share the podcast, go to her website, get the flyers, post it, all that stuff. The uncomfortable talk is like you probably got to go through like $5. Just go throw $5. I'm not asking you to write $1,000. Go write a couple bucks. If you're busy, I can't do this. I got to go get gas. I got to bring the kid to school. That's fine. Copy and paste the podcast and go donate. Go donate a literal dollar, and just so that's like the uncomfortable priest talk. Like yeah, I know, yeah, it's money. You got to go do. And this is me. This is not Bobbie saying this. This is me. She didn't ask me to say this. This is me being the asshole. You got to go throw her a couple bucks because this stuff is not free. Correct?
Well, yeah, it's definitely not free, but I thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, even the smallest donations to the larger donations, everything is so helpful. And I really appreciate it. I even appreciate when people write comments on my Substack articles. It's encouraging to hear people read my articles and then say, wow, thank you so much for this information, or you're doing a great job. Those things help too. I mean, you definitely want to hear that people are appreciating, your effort and your work. And, I'm on social media. I'm finally on Twitter, just started this year. But if people want to follow me on Twitter and, retweet the stuff I post, that helps to spread the word. My Twitter is attorney_Cox, which is COX. So attorney_Cox is my Twitter. And again, I'm on substack.com. And those are really the two main things that I focus on as far as social media, because I'm kind of a social media dinosaur.
So am I. It's fine. I don't know how the internets work. Okay, I just found your Twitter. I just started following you, and I copy and pasted your Twitter into the description. Excuse me, as well as the Substack, and I will copy and paste that into the Rumble video. So everything. So all things lawyer, our lawsuit commercial, our lawsuit website, your law firm website, lawsuit website, Substack website, and Twitter. All those links are in there. And the biggest compliment I can give you is that, and this may sound very narcissistic because I am an asshole, is doing this podcast at 1:30. I no exceptions. I always tell people I do 2 p.m. That's just how I start. That's how I do the show. And when you're like, I gotta do 1:30, I'm like, Bobbie is literally one of like 3 people that I will do a 1:30 show. So that may not sound like much, but as someone with clinical OCD, that is the best compliment I can give you, Bobbie, as I did the 1:30 podcast. That is, it may not sound like much, but that is like the gold star I can give you, because I don't do that for anyone. I don't care. I don't care who it is. I don't do it. So
thank you. Thank you
yes,
so much. I appreciate that, Tommy. It's fabulous that you told me that.
I know that anyone listening is probably like, what the fuck is he saying? It's anyone with OCD. You hear me. You shout out to my OCD people. They know. But with that, Miss Cox, we got to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for your time. I sent you the link to the Rumble link. I'll send you the Spotify link later, and all of those links are in the description for Miss Cox's stuff. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Tommy. It's great to talk to you always.
Yes, ma'am. You as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please go support Bobbie. Bobbie, thank you for